Hello and welcome to Frank Talk on Rajya Sabha Television with me, Frank Rausen Pereira. We have a special guest on the program today. There's a lot of talk about how there are going to be several first-time voters in the fray this time around and how the youth too is going to be voting in exuberance. And I have a young leader with me, the youngest candidate as far as the BJP is concerned for the 2019 Lok Sabha elections. It is a pleasure to welcome on the program Tejasvi Surya. Welcome and thank you for joining us on Rajya Sabha TV.
Thank you, Frank.
Firstly, I'd like to know from you, when you got that call, saying that you're going to be contesting from this prestigious seat, a seat that the BJP has won continuously from 1991. What was your initial reaction?
Well, I in fact tweeted what my initial reaction was. It was, oh my God. It was such a surreal and
I saw that.
Overwhelming moment. But primarily I was overcome with two very heavy emotions. One was a sense of deep gratitude for the party leadership because they had reposed such immense faith in me. Two, a sense of urgency, so that something that I reminded myself that I need to grow up overnight, so that I need to be ready to, shoulder the burden of responsibility of being the representative of a constituency as prestigious and as important as Bangalore South. And also to live up to the faith and expectations of the party's leadership, because they have reposed such immense faith in me. These two were the overbearing emotions that I felt once I was told that I would be the candidate for this constituency.
Just to put it into perspective, Tejasvi is still in his 20s. He's not yet 30, so he's very much a young leader. So, as far as that call was made, were you expecting it? Did you think that you'd get that call? Did you think that you'd be the candidate for this constituency?
Well, there were speculations that I may be considered. I mean, these were media reports. But the chance of my name being considered was very, very remote, because the state unit had recommended the name of Mrs. Tejaswini Anantkumar. And therefore, the chance of any other name being considered was very remote. And I very honestly had not lobbied or had not asked for this ticket. So it was just media speculations.
So what worked in your favor, do you think?
Well, I think the BJP is a ideologically driven party, and in all ideology driven parties, it is very natural that the political leadership of the party always wants to groom fresh and new leadership, especially new generation leadership, to take the mantle of the party and the party's ideology forward. And this has always been the way the BJP has always functioned. If you look at the Advani-ji, Vajpayee-ji era, Pramod Mahajan, Anant Kumar, Sushma Swaraj, Arun Jaitley, Ravi Shankar Prasad, all of these host of leaders, they were all groomed by Advani-ji, Vajpayee-ji, who now are the front runners and flag bearers of the party.
So what is that ideology today in 2019? Is it identity? Is it development? Is it something else? What is it really?
The primary political philosophy of the Bharatiya Janata Party has been to see the country and the motherland rise to the levels of its true potential. Whether it may be economic, whether it may be spiritual, whether it may be militarily. So that primarily is the basis of the Bharatiya Janata Party's political philosophy. Well, you may choose to call it Hindutva, one may choose to call it cultural nationalism. These are just labels.
What would you like to call it?
Well, for me, the term Hindutva is a very all-encompassing term, which would primarily mean seeing this motherland, this land of ours where we are born, grow to its fullest potential and be the leading light of the world. So well, if I would have to call it Hindutva, I have no apologies calling it in that manner.
You know, you represent lakhs of young people in this country. What is your vision for them? What is your vision for India?
Frank, India is today a very young country. And it's also the beauty of this country today is it is the oldest civilization as well as the youngest nation. In that sense, we are a blend of historical and heritage and such values, as well as a young aspirational country. We all want, especially the young of the country, want better quality of life. We want a great standard of better standards of living. We all want better job opportunities. We all want to live in a country that respects merit, that respects talent, where hard work is respected, where institutions function in a manner where people, young people, irrespective of their pedigree, get opportunities and progress in their careers based on their individual performance. A country that is not corrupt, a country that respects and places premium on honesty, and also a country that values the idealism of the youth. When you are young, you are generally idealistic. You want, it's a sort of a romantic world that we all live in. And I think that romanticism is a good thing when you are young. And it's sad that when you get old, the system tames you and you lose that sense of romantic idealism. But as long as it is possible, I would want to keep that romantic idealism of valuing these core values of this country very dearly and keeping it close to the national psyche.
Right.
And most importantly, Frank, India needs to grow economically. India's military might needs to increase. And for all of this, young Indians need to get better opportunities. And for that, India needs to be a truly free country. Free in every sense, liberal in the true sense of the word, where young men and women have the freedom and liberty to choose the way they want to live their lives, eat what they want, go about doing their lives in the way they want, pursue the career opportunities that they want. Because a stable and a liberal society is a precondition for all kinds of growth.
Right.
So that's the kind of India that I envision to create right now.
So the India of 2019 is a very aspirational India.
Very true.
How do you plan on, ensuring those aspirations are met?
I was yesterday in a slum in Koramangala, near Koramangala, called Mangamanpalya. So I was interacting with a few young people of my age. They want to wear a Nike t-shirt. They want to wear an Adidas shoes. They also want to travel in a nicer car. Everyone wants a better standard of life. And I think the primary challenge for a country like India today is to make India a high income economy. And in the last 5 years, the Narendra Modi government has ensured that a 45% increase in per capita income of average Indians, which I think is a very, very big and great leap forward. So I think the ensuring economic prosperity of India and Indians is a very, very important step towards meeting the aspirations of young India. And that can happen only if we are a very truly liberal and free society, both in terms of the economy as well as socially.
You said that, over the last 5 years, the Narendra Modi government has done a lot of work, really, to try and ensure that the country has been brought up to a particular level. But yet, when you look at the party's manifesto, you yourself, in your initial comments were talking about military might, military strength. Shouldn't the BJP be focusing on, the development agenda, what it has done really to take the nation forward, rather than play on the insecurity really of the people by, playing the Pakistan card, by playing the Pulwama and the Balakot card.
That Pakistan is a prick, that Pakistan intends to bleed India by 1,000 cuts, that Pakistan is a roadblock to India's fast-paced progress is a reality. And any political party, more so a political party that is very serious about governing this country and is responsible for the country's national security, must address issues of India's national security concerns emanating from Pakistan and China and any other national security concerns in a very responsible manner. It is not fear-mongering. It is not creating a bogey. It is very honestly an attempt to equip ourselves to handle any eventualities. This is not an India, Frank, where under Nehru, for example, he wanted to disband the Indian army because he lived in a romantic world where he thought the army is of no use to the country.
But you said romanticism is good.
Romanticism embedded in reality is what politics, true politics is.
That having been said,
that is the kind of politics that the Prime Minister Modi is trying to create. He engages with Pakistan, he tried to engage with Pakistan. Even now we say we are okay to talk to Pakistan provided they dismantle terror pads. So, addressing the national security interests of the country, I think is a very, very important and primary responsibility of the central government.
Absolutely, I don't deny with you on that at all. But how much of a resonance does an issue like that have in South India, have in a city like Bangalore, especially the south of India, which has never seen war, which has never really sent that many people to the army? Is it going to have any kind of a resonance here down south?
After the Pulwama attack, a soldier called, by the name Guru from Hassan was martyred. Frank, more than 18 crore rupees came as contributions and donations to his family, and most of it came from the people of Karnataka. It only shows that there is a very wrong assumption, especially in the media houses in the north and in some quarters in the north, again in Delhi, that thinks the south of India does not connect to issues of national security as much as the people of the north do. And I think it's a very wrong notion. And given the fact that I learned that you are also from the south, so we all do connect to the idea that we are all the same nation at the end of the day. And we all want to see this country safe, strong, secure and prosperous.
Let's talk about your constituency now a little bit, because you have big shoes to fill really. Is that going to be a challenge?
Of course, Frank, because Anant Kumarji was a 6-time MP. He was one of the tallest leaders of Karnataka. He functioned as a bridge between Karnataka and Delhi. He was the voice of Kannada in Delhi. He spoke on issues that were so crucial to Karnataka, whether it was Kaveri, whether it was Krishna, whether it was our water sharing agreements, whether it was our border issues with Maharashtra or Kerala, whether it was bringing massive infrastructure projects to Bangalore city, like the international airport, the metro, the Kaveri 4th phase, the suburban rail. I mean, if I had written an article about Anant Kumarji after he passed away, in which I had titled that he was Kempe Gowda 2.0. Because after the old Kempe Gowda who laid the initial foundations of the city, Anant Kumar and S.M. Krishna kind of built the foundations of a modern day Bangalore. So it's a very big responsibility.
You mentioned in your opening remark as well, talking about the constituency, you said that, the front runner really was Mrs. Anant Kumar for this particular seat, to be contesting from this particular seat, and the state unit too had suggested her name. So, is there some kind of a friction really between the state unit and you, or is that matter now closed?
No, see, when some new decision is made, it takes some, a few hours or a couple of days for, people to come to terms with a few decisions, and that's natural in any organization, and more so when such an important decision is taken in a political organization. But Frank, I must tell you that in the last 10-12 days, I have come to respect my party and its leadership even more than what I was earlier doing, primarily because I have seen from very close quarters how all of these senior leaders in the city, whether it is R. Ashok, whether it is V. Somanna, whether it is Satish Reddy, all of these senior MLAs from this constituencies, former ministers, have taken the trouble to encourage me, groom me literally, from even small things like, wear this shirt and come, don't wear this, drink, don't drink cold water in the campaign, if your throat hurts, take this tablet, wave at people here, don't, keep your car windows, up all the time, keep it open so that you can talk to people. This is how they have been grooming me.
What is the most sensible advice that you received in the last few days?
Be with people and be with them honestly. They will love you. Keep your intentions clear and they will respect you.
And during the campaign trail, do you want to share with us, maybe a light moment, a funny moment, something that you did not expect, something that was out of the ordinary for you?
Well, there are so many, like that's coming. Like every leader has his own unique style of campaigning. When I was campaigning in Bommanhalli with Satish Reddy, who is a 3-time MLA, he has a very unique style of talking to people, very hardworking, goes up, 3 to 4 floors every time, talks to each person in a particular manner. Today I was with V. Somanna, who is a very, very senior veteran leader. He literally knows his entire constituency, by the names. So he's on the road, campaign trail. He's like, hey, Bhagyama, why are you not voting? Hey, Rajappa, come here, listen to me. So, that's the level of connect that he has with the constituents. That's, something so incredible. The man literally knows, I think, a few thousand names and rattles them off each and every time he sees someone. So it's been incredible, and also, this may not be on the lighter moment, but it just shows how much of faith the common Indian still has on our system. Because when today, when you're on the campaign, a flower vendor, a lady came to me and she gave me a few, flowers in the morning, and she gave, keep this, and I wish you well, and her blessing. And that hope that was there in her eyes, it means so much, because she sees that this system, this parliamentary democracy that we have chosen for ourselves, can actually deliver results to her, that it can actually better her life. So it also reminds us that we need to be so responsible, because we are dealing with lives of such people, hopes of such vulnerable people.
And that's the beauty of a democracy.
Yes.
So, I'm sure it's not all good. There have been some downs as well, and some unforeseen incidents that could have possibly taken place. Anything that you'd like to share with us?
Nothing.
It must have been a bumpy ride.
Well, see, it's politics is not very, is not an easy thing. You have challenges coming every day. We all have watched House of Cards. So, we know how every other call that you get is a call that comes out of distress, and you need to take some kind of an action all the time. So that's how this field is. But at the end of the day, you keep sailing. It's like riding a tiger.
Employment is something that everyone's been talking about. There was this NSSO data as well that was, contrary to what the government has been saying and contrary to what the BJP has been saying. Your thoughts on employment and what needs to be done there?
Two quick thoughts. First, India is a very young country, and there are more number of young people in India at this point in time than ever before, which is the reason why there is a high demand for jobs today. And the reason why we need a stable, progressive and a proven government is primarily because it's only a stable government with a proven economic track record that can provide jobs and create new economic opportunities. If the Modi government in the last 5 years has been able to lift the largest number of people out of poverty ever before in India's history, if the government has delivered growth, the fastest growth rates, in India's history, if the per capita income of the average Indian has increased massively by 45% in the last 5 years, then this government is definitely doing something right. Therefore, if India's jobs crisis, or I wouldn't want to call it jobs crisis, I would want to call it India's jobs scenario should be addressed adequately, then it can be done only by the Modi government.
And what are your 3 top focus areas going to be? What do you think that we need to concentrate on going forward?
As a country or
as a country, and also your personal focus areas, really, for the people and for the youth that you represent?
I think economic opportunities is something most crucial for India today. When you have such a young country, when you have, and by default when you are young, you are aspirational. If India's economic progress is not commensurate to the growth of the, commensurate to India's aspirations, then it will create a very difficult scenario for people, whoever is governing the country. Therefore, the top priority for India today is to create massive economic opportunities for its people so that the young and aspirational citizens of this country are given enough and adequate opportunities.
So the demographic dividend otherwise is going to turn into a liability, and that's something that we need to address. What about education? Because you're a youngster, come out of the education system, do we need an overhaul of our education system, do you think?
In many ways, yes. When I mean there must be a lot of economic opportunities, it will necessarily mean that we will have to start working from the very grassroots. And it would definitely mean addressing the challenges of our educational system, whether it would mean ensuring that the quality of our education is much higher, much better, whether it is providing for greater industry interfaced skilling opportunities, whether it is a continuous skilling program, because in today's era you can't have one skill set that will be sufficient for the next 60-50 years. So, or whether it is opening up the economy or opening up of providing enough capital which will encourage young people to start up on their own. So these are all subsets under the main set of ensuring greater economic opportunities.
One final question before I let you go. It's actually not a question, but anything that you would like to say to the youth of the nation, from one youth to the others?
Friends, the Prime Minister of this country has made a very, very important political statement by asking a 28-year-old guy like me, who represents you, he's one amongst you, to take up an opportunity and speak for the voice of the young people in the parliament. It only means that he does not intend the young people of this country to remain as mere bystanders and watch the progress and development of the country, but he wants them to lead and take charge of the country's development. And most importantly, I want to call upon all young people to not stay disconnected and disenchanted with the political system anymore. The country's political system has taken a tectonic shift in the last 5 years, and more young people, irrespective of your political backgrounds or otherwise, must seriously consider entering political parties, because political parties need better talent. Political parties need more young people who are dedicated, capable, committed, intelligent, because this country's political leadership in the coming days needs nothing but the best.
I would like to add one more thing to that. Of course, I'd like to urge all the viewers, all the voters of this country to go out and vote like I've been doing in all my programs. Be a responsible citizen. Go out and vote. Be the difference. Every vote counts. Go out there and vote when your turn comes. Tejasvi, thank you so much for joining me on the program. It was a pleasure having you on Rajya Sabha TV. Thank you for sharing your views with us. Employment is going to be your key focus area, you said. We'll wait and see how much and what happens as far as employment is concerned in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you so much.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Frank Talk on Rajya Sabha Television. See you again next time.